And Colonel Huseyin Demirtas, can you give us a summary of what you'd like to say at the beginning?
So, hello to everyone, to the world. So we are talking to the world globally. I will not keep so short because my personal story is also a story of Turkish citizens. So I was a Turkish naval officer, a public servant. I served my country in the Turkish armed forces for 22 years. I'm almost 50 years old, married, a father of 3 children. So I'm just a simple human being. And as you introduced in the beginning, I represented my country in different positions. And lastly, in an honorable position in a diplomatic mission as a military diplomat. So I represented my country, my citizens. So I lived lots of things, some adventure, I call it. And Erdogan's bureaucracy dismissed me from the public service when I was serving in a NATO Center of Excellence Against Terrorism. So this is also ironic. Now, what I am doing, I am fighting against this dictatorship to serve my nation and humanity as an individual human rights activist, as a researcher, and as an author. Coming to my personal story, because as I told you, it is also the story of every Turkish citizen, every innocent Turkish citizens who became a victim of Erdocide. So I call this Erdocide as Erdogan's systemic pre-planned genocide. As you know, something happened in July 15, 2016. Hundreds of our citizens were killed, some wounded, thousands were wounded also. But the most important thing, the regime, which founded by Atatürk, was destroyed. And while all these were happening, I was not in Turkey. But when I went to Turkey, when I went back to Turkey, Erdogan's bureaucracy first changed my previous assignment, which was a degrading in a military organization, and I returned, so they detained me and tortured also. So they arbitrarily detained me for killing and wounding people in Ankara, which in reality I was in Romania. So this is not my own story. This is something happening in Turkey for everyone, for every targeted citizen. So they had nothing.
Yeah. Colonel, can I ask you what actually happened? Can you take us back to the night of the 15th of July in 2016? What actually happened that night?
So that night, first, the public, the global public, are not able to see the realities behind the official saying, the Erdogan's government saying. Lots of things happened at the same time. So hundreds of my beloved citizens were killed, thousands were wounded. But when I was dismissed, I started to study what happened in reality on that night. And I reached to some level. But the reality can be found only, the pure reality can be found only after an independent and international investigation, because there is no rule of law in Turkey. Because Erdogan himself and his affiliated servants, high-level commanders and statesmen, high-level statesmen, bureaucrats, the prosecutors, the police, the judges, members of parliament, media, are deceiving all the society, covering the real information. And also they are destroying the evidences and obviously lying. So, but the most important thing is Erdogan's affiliated bureaucrats, high commanders, governors, police chiefs, ISIS elements, collaborated ISIS elements, and ambushed their own citizens and soldiers on that night. Step by step, I will just try to summarize what happened generally. The soldiers were directed to some selected certain positions with a false terrorist attack warning. And this warning came from Turkish intelligence. The police were ordered to stay silent and hidden, not to engage the events as a real security force, but to provoke the civilians, to direct them to certain points and the soldiers, to provoke the soldiers also. The governors and the police chiefs, so they are responsible for the security of the public, you know. So they directed the civilians to certain points. At these points, snipers were located, and they were employed to kill, to injure, and to provoke the civilians by shooting them, especially on the heads, eyes, necks, and chests. So the civilians and the soldiers were provoked against each other. Some others set up an explosion assembly in the parliament, and this presented to global public as an attack of military people. But this was an explosion, an assembly in the parliament, and this assembly was activated while the Air Force aircraft were flying over the capital. So
can I just ask a question so I understand it myself, and hopefully the audience will understand it as well? Because I, as a journalist, I think the reporting of what happened that night was broadly, globally, that there was a split in the military themselves as to who should be the government and shouldn't be the government, and so on and so on, rather than, you know, the military against the people. Is that true?
So I'm just coming there. So the only thing that we can say this is a coup attempt, it was an attack to Erdogan. He was, maybe you remember, in a holiday in Marmaris.
Yes.
But yeah, so this was the only attack against the government, actually against Erdogan himself. But the attack was done not by the military people. So some terrorist teams were sent to Marmaris, which Erdogan was having a holiday, 3 hours before the soldiers' arrival. And they are hiding this. They are the prosecutors, the judges, the trial, they are all the courts. They are hiding the bureaucrats. So 3 hours before the soldiers' arrivals, there was a 3 helicopter team. They were terrorists, but they had military camouflage uniforms. And there are more than 50 witnesses of this. So this terrorist team killed police officers, tortured, and heavily injured security personnel. And the media, the Erdogan's media, the Erdogan's bureaucracy, his government, they are presenting these incidents as the military officers and petty officers made, which came 3 hours later. So this is the most important thing. So everybody knows this, but they keep silent, even the lawyers. So even the judges, the prosecutors, everybody knows that. And they are deceiving the public, the local and global public, that some team came, some soldiers came to kill Erdogan, to kidnap him, something like that. But in reality, there were 3 helicopters, and they came 3 hours before. They did everything, and the government shows that as military people they did it, which is in reality as a decisive, as a deception.